Hi researcher, welcome back to the BoldVision Academy. I'm very excited to have you back here as we digest and we go through the theoretical framework in this session. For the few minutes that we shall be here, we shall be discussing, digesting and trying to understand what is theoretical framework. So have you ever struggled to understand what is a theoretical framework? What it includes and how to develop it, and even where to place it in your research. So then this video is for you. So you're not alone in this area that you're struggling. Many students, the researchers, and even professionals find this concept to be very confusing. But don't worry. By the end of this video, you will not only understand what it is, but also know how to develop and use it in the best way. So today I'm breaking down everything you need to know about the theoretical framework, backed by research and also the best practice in the industry. So stay till the end. I'll share the tips that you need to use and how to make your theoretical framework strong and stand out in your paper. So before we dive in, make sure you subscribe, you like, and also you share to your friends and colleagues who might also be struggling to understand. So point number one, let's just understand what is a theoretical framework. So in a very simple terms, a theoretical framework is the foundation of your research. It is the backbone of your research. So it explains the theories, the models, and the concepts that support your study. And it also provides a structured way to analyze your research problem. So that is a simple way to understand what is a theoretical framework. It is actually the foundation of your research. And also it tries to explain the theory, the model that you're going to use, the concept, just to try to analyze your problem. So it answers a big question in your research. What existing theories or concepts explain the phenomena you are studying? That is a big question that the theoretical concept try to understand, try to explain and put it into perspective. And it try to explain the existing theories or the concept or the model concerning the phenomenon that you are trying to study or you are investigating or you are assessing. So a theoretical framework is just like a backbone of your research. It holds your research together. So it is a structure that supports your study by explaining this theory, this concept and model that guides your research. For example, if you are trying to study student motivation, your theoretical framework might include theories like Maslow hierarchy theory of need or self-determination theory that are going to support your variables, and each theory will be holding a specific variable and try to demonstrate how important it is in your research. So according to have some empirical evidence that have come out very clearly, like the Grant and Onsolo in 2014, he tried to define and say that a theoretical framework serves as a blueprint that guides research by offering a clear structure for interpreting the findings. That is by Grant and Onsolo 2014. I have also another empirical evidence that try to support this work. And another one is Emende 2024, and he stated that a weak or a missing theoretical framework leads to unclear research focus and poorly structured studies. Also, according to Ravish and Regan in 2016, it also says that a theoretical framework helps researchers connect their study to existing knowledge and provide a rationale for their approach, how they are going to approach the study, how they're going to approach the research that they are carrying out. So those are empirical evidence that try to make us understand more what is theoretical framework. So the question is, why is it important? Why is it important? One, it provides a direction. So from what we have seen, it provides a direction. It helps define research objectives and methodology. So it should connect your work from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, up to chapter 5. We must see that element in everywhere, trying to connect your work. It connects your study to existing body of knowledge. So it strengthens academic credibility. That is what you're saying. It tries to strengthen the credibility of academic, because you will be evaluating what others are doing and also advancing your knowledge. It justifies your studies. So it explains the significance of your research problems, because a theory is something that has been developed, it has been tested, and therefore when you justify and you connect with your work, it actually explains the significance of your research problem. Point number 2, what does a theoretical framework include? So a strong theoretical framework consists of the following elements. One, we have the core theories and the concepts. So identify the relevant theory that explains your research problem. So you need to identify the relevant theories that explains your research. And by the end, we shall be seeing how you identify the process that you go through to identify the core theories that your work is anchored in. For example, if you are studying the leadership style, you might use the transformational leadership theory according to Bass 1985. So you might decide to use that. But how do you do it? That is what we shall be looking at. How do you identify these theories? Point number 2, another element is the variables and the relationship. So define your key variables and how they relate. Use a conceptual model or diagram to show this relationship visually. So you can draw a diagram or a diagram to illustrate your variables and this interrelationship, how they relate with one another. Another element is existing empirical studies, or what we call evidence. Reference past research to justify your chosen theories. You must reference past research to justify your core theories. For instance, Kivunja in 2018 emphasized that citing a prior studies improve the credibility of the theoretical framework. So at least to make it more strong, at least 5 empirical evidence that supports that theory in relation to your work. And nobody will bring any objection or dispute concerning your work, because you actually digged in the literature and come up with supporting evidence, very strong evidence, 5 empirical evidence. Nobody can try to dispute that. Another element that's supposed to be there is assumption and limitations. So address any constraint related to your theoretical approach. So these theories and concepts and models, they have limitations, they have assumptions. So how are you going to deal with them? If you are going to use that theory, what are the limitations and what are the assumptions? So that anybody who is going to use your research, or your supervisor, when you go through it, you're going to see, okay, you understand this theory has a limitation, but now you are going to use it in this direction, or this is how you are going to handle these limitations. So these are some of the theories that we have, or some of the elements that are supposed to be included. So point number three, how is a theoretical framework developed? How do you develop the theoretical framework? So now that we know what a theoretical framework includes, let's talk about how to develop it. Step number one, identify your research problem. So this is where I was coming to. I said that if you identify these are the variables that it include, then how are you going to develop it? So step number one is identify your research problem. So you have to clearly define what you are studying. Ask yourself, what existing theories relate to my topic? So you need to understand your research problem so that you are able to know the existing theories that relate to your work. For example, if you are researching student motivation, you might explore self-determination theory, and it is going to ensure your work is very strong. But our question is, how do you develop it? So you start from there by defining your research problem, identifying the theory. Step number two is review existing theories and literature. So you need to conduct a thorough literature review to identify relevant theory. So you just don't go and pick a theory anyhow. You must have an evidence how that theory applies to your work and how it has been used and how it has been critiqued and what are the assumptions and limitations of that theory. And you can only get that by doing or conducting a thorough literature review. And we have some guidelines, like studies of Ace Hadid in 1989. He recommended you analyze at least 5 to 10 empirical papers or published papers before selecting the theoretical foundation you are going to use. So that theoretical foundation must be supported by empirical papers or studies that have been done, so that you don't just bring in your work a theory or an empirical or a theoretical foundation or theoretical concept that is not backed by studies that have been done to support your work, to make it more stronger. So at least you must sit down and look for at least 5 to 10 papers that relate to your work and study them and provide an evidence in your work. Okay? So the other part, point number 3 is select and justify your theoretical model. Select and justify. So from the 5 to 10 papers that you have studied, you will pick a theory that best explains your study and provide a framework analysis of how it has been used, if it has assumptions, if it has limitations, and you justify. So you don't just go and pick a theory anyhow. You must have gone through some studies and establish that this is the best theory that can support my work, and before you have supporting papers that you can cite that nobody will dispute. Where do you got this theory, or where did you got this conceptual framework or this theoretical framework? So example, if you're studying organization change, you might use Lewin's change management model of 1951. So that model, it has been used by also other research. So dig in and come up with a very clear evidence to support that model that you're explaining. So that is point number 3. Point number 4, explain how the theory applies to your study. Explain how the theory applies to your study. So show how the selected theory guides your research questions, hypothesis, or the methodology. So it's not just very easy work. You need to justify how that theory, it will guide your work, and you justify by bringing in evidence through the research that has been done. So you need to do citation to explain at least 5 and above, that even your supervisor or your academic advisor will not dispute it, because you have clearly provided an evidence to support your work and the language that you're going to use to prove that surely this is the theory that supports my work. So the best practice is create a visual conceptual framework using a diagram to clarify the relationship. Okay, so you don't just go and pick or you draw a model, a conceptual framework or a theoretical framework. You can, the papers that you have gone through, they have used different theoretical framework. Select one that you feel that will fit your work. You modify it. You add variables. You remove some of them. You add that you feel are going together with your work or are going to make your work better. You remove that you feel that he used this variable, I'm going to remove it and replace it with this so that to work and see the relationship, and you justify. So point number 4, where is the theoretical framework used in research? Where is it used? So this is also another question that brings a lot of debate. I remember one time when we had an academic meeting, we were trying to review the format on how research should be done in a university. So it had a lot of debate. Do we put it in chapter 1 or in chapter 2? Where? So this is one of the most common question we have in academic. Where do I place the theoretical framework in my research? Where? Where do I position it in my research paper or in my thesis? Okay, so you can put it in chapter 2 after you have reviewed the study, or you can put it after your introduction. Before you go to chapter 2, you can introduce it there. But the best key tips that I can provide in this session is that follow your university guidelines. So some institutions require it to be put in a separate chapter or in a separate page, or to be included in chapter 2 or to be included in chapter 1. So the best practice or the best things that a tip I can give here, try to follow your university guidelines where they want it to be put. Right? So point number 5, best practice for writing a strong theoretical framework. So what are the best practice for writing a strong theoretical framework that nobody will dispute it, nobody will reject, nobody will bring opposition about it? So these are the tips that I can provide in this session that will ensure your theoretical framework stand out very clearly and very strong and accepted, either in your profession, in your academic work. 1, use a peer-reviewed sources. So don't just pick a paper anyhow, in a newspaper, in a book that we don't know who published it. It's not an authority. Nobody knows about it. So always use the peer-reviewed journal or articles to be able to get empirical evidence to support your work. Okay. Number 2, keep it concise. Avoid overloading it with too many theories. So it is not advisable to use so many theories in your work. It will bring confusion that you don't even know what you are doing, or you don't even know which theory has a bigger impact in your work. So probably the best practice will propose at least 2 or 3 theories will be good enough to support your work. Others will say every variable to have its own theory. Others will say no, we need one major theory that anchor the whole of your variables, and other 2 or 3 theories that supports other variables in your work. The other one, point number 3, for the best practice, justify your choice. Why have you selected that theory? And we have explained that more. You need to provide a practical evidence. So explain why a particular theory is relevant to your research. Not only using your words and your language, but providing an evidence from a peer-reviewed sources or journal or articles where we can say so and so use this theory and this is the justification. Another one, use visual. You can draw a diagram to enhance clarity. Just like I have said, from all the papers that you have gone through, many of them will have a theoretical framework. So just pick one. Don't just go and pick anyhow, or you draw in a diagram the way you want. Pick one that you feel you can justify and modify it to fit your work and provide an evidence that you picked this model from so and so and you modified to fit in your work by adding and removing these and these variables to fit my study. And that is enough evidence that you have actually used a model that has been used elsewhere, and therefore it is a credible source. It is a good model that that can provide an evidence that your work is justifiable. Ensure logical flow. Connect the theoretical framework smoothly to your research problem and methodology. So it is not only that your theoretical framework is not only for chapter 2 or chapter 1. It should connect your work. It should put your work together. We should see you in your introduction explaining the theories that you're going to use and connect them with your variables. And then maybe in chapter 2, that is where now you bring now these theories, explaining these theories in details, bringing in the limitations, the assumptions of this theory and how they are being used and how they are connected to your study. And then you'll be able now to draw the theoretical framework, you bring a diagram on to showing the relationship. That is what it's very, very much important, and nobody will reject your work because you have actually shown that you're appreciating others have used this model, they have used this model, and therefore you have picked it, modified and fit it in your work, and therefore it is something that is reliable. Well, that's for today. Now you know what is a theoretical framework, where or what the elements that it includes, how you can develop one, where you can put it, and also the best practice on where to put it and how to support it. So if you have any question about the theoretical framework, you can drop it in the comments, and let's keep learning together. So if this video has helped you, you can like it and share it. That is the only way you can help me. Subscribe, and let's keep researching. Let's keep writing. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.